somehow or another, I spend my life laying underneath a car, usually a Corvair. We hung the engine in this thing a few days ago. We still have several things that have to be hooked up underneath here. We got to put new heater hoses on it. We've got to put the power glide shift cable in, then put the axles back in, and then the transverse spring, the exhaust system, and that's kind of most of the stuff underneath. There's a few other detail things, but you know, we're closing in on it. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot longer before we have it running. Maybe later today.
So that's actually dryer hose, which actually works okay. And these are the real ones.
That's the real deal stuff, and they really are better. They're a better, heavier material, and they're oil resistant. And you can see this is pretty thin, kind of paper thin stuff, and this has got a lot more consistency to it, and probably better water resistance too, I would imagine. All right, I don't know if you can see this, but up in here there's a neoprene sleeve on this heater hose, and the purpose of that is to insulate the main starter wire. What happens is over time, with vibration and stuff, it'll rub a place in the hose here until the metal of the hose wire contacts the main starter lead right here. And then what happens is that it begins to short through the hose, the electricity does, back through the coils of the hose. And since the wire is so thin, it gets red hot after a time, and then it begins to smolder, and then the hose catches on fire. Next thing you know, you have an electrical fire being fed by gas and oil and whatever else is underneath here, and you have a big ass mess. And basically this little $3-4 sleeve is designed to prevent that, and with that on here, it's virtually impossible for it to happen. So you got to do that. We got to cut the hose off right here. They're always a little bit long. We probably got to cut about this much off the hose for it to go on there, and then we'll be in business.
All right, this loopy thing is a vacuum modulator line, which I just found out what that is. And it goes through that hole, snakes down. Greg is under the car right now, and he's going to pick it up. That's a vacuum modulator line.
All right, well, the studs were removed from the heads when Tom Knobloch machined them. And so we got to put the studs back in. In order to do that, we double nut them and jam the nut up. And then you just bring them down. You look at it, you can kind of use this as a gauge for the height of where it's supposed to be. It's only supposed to be sticking up about a nut's worth. Maybe, what is that, 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch above the carburetor. So we need to go down about that much right there.
And then the high stud to the left and the low stud
To the right. And we'll size that one too by sliding the carburetor over it after we get it, the long one, down to where we want it.
Okay. What are we doing here?
We're fighting with this thing. Actually, this should have, oh, it's not hooked. Duh. That's kind of fighting with me. I'm trying to get this on. This is the balance tube with these hoses. This is a real common vacuum leak area on these things, right at the base of the carburetors.
We got fresh rubber on these.
Yeah, and we'll get them all into place so everything lines up nice and neat and all that stuff. But basically, that's just the balance tube and the rubbers. Then we got to hook up the vacuum modulator and et cetera, et cetera. But we're closing in on it. We're really getting pretty close at this point.
So we spun these down to where they are just up above the top part of the carburetor.
Yeah, stick out maybe a 1/4 of an inch or something like that.
All right.
We're getting close. All right, well, we've got the carburetors on it, and one of the things that I get asked about the most is about how to synchronize the carburetor, what a unisync is, how you do it all. And so I'm going to kind of cover real quickly the basic procedure for doing the first adjustment when you first put them on the car. And I've already done this one, but basically this is your curb idle speed screw right here. You back that out till it's not contacting this butterfly here. Okay, you hold it shut and you back it out, and you can see it as the butterfly closes. Okay, once it's fully closed, you bring it in to where it's just barely contacting the butterfly, then 1.5 turns. Okay, you do that on both sides, and the same thing. This is the idle mixture screw right here. You screw this all the way in and bring it out 1.5 turns. When you start the car, that should give you a good baseline. You should be idling at 600, 650, 700 RPM, something like that. You probably need to adjust the curb idle mixture screws right away. What I do is I just kind of go screw them in and out, and you can kind of hear when it does what they call the lean idle rollover. But anyway, if you do that and you start at a good baseline like that, and then you get the unisync, I think you'll probably find that it's pretty doggone close to start with, and then all you got to do is get the idle where you want it and all that, and use the unisync for the final adjustment, and you're good to go. It's really not hard. All right, well, we're about to try to start it. Hopefully it'll start and run. That was the point of the exercise anyway.
We sprinted towards the finish there. Everything's hooked up.
Yeah, we got a few little odds and ends to do and some things to straighten out, but I mean, we're up to the point we can start it and make sure it's going to run okay and all that cool stuff.
And now, one of the things I saw you do that was we actually filled up the
Oil filter. Yeah, I always fill it up.
with oil.
It just makes it a little easier for it to pick up the oil and it doesn't cavitate as much. In other words, it doesn't starve it for oil to the bearings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's because we took that engine all the way apart.
Well, we didn't take it all the way apart, but because we didn't have the rods and all that stuff out of it. I'm not going to pull the distributor out and prime it all that. If it was a brand new engine, I would prime the oil pump and all that, but I don't think it's really necessary on this thing.
And we filled it up with 4.5 of synthetic, and so here we go.
And we're ready.
All right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're going to try to start it. Uh-oh, go ahead. And the lifters will be quiet after the pump. Well, we're about to put the transverse spring on. Only the 64s have the transverse spring. It's sometimes called a camber compensator. Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt to get this thing on there. The only other thing that's probably worse is the late model strut rods, the bottom strut rods. It's all about angles and all that. We'll hoist this thing into place. We may have to jack up on the control arms and, do this, that, and the monkey's hat to get it all on there. It's one of those things that just seems like that it won't go until it does. And so we'll just keep after it until we get the sucker on there. And then we'll show you what it looks like when and if we get it done.
And what size bolts are we using here?
Okay, these are these studs right here that hang down. Those are 3/8/16 in terms of the nuts. We wanted castellated nuts, but they didn't have any. So we're using some lock nuts temporarily till we can get some 3/8/16 castellated nuts. These will do the job at least to begin with. And then these are 3/8/16 bolts that go in the bottom of the mount here. And let's see these little guys, wherever they are. Right here, like these little guys right here is what holds it down. And then you have this cushion thing. One goes on the top, one goes on the bottom, goes right there. So pretty simple stuff. Just a pain. All right, we're about ready to fill the differential. You see we've got the jug of 90 weight gear oil. This little gizmo you buy at the parts house is a little tube. It's got a shut-off valve on it. And what that does is allows you to kind of get it in the differential. This is a messy job no matter how you slice it. If you go to a shop, they'll have a 90 weight gear oil pump with a little hook thing on it and they do it up in the air. But unfortunately, like everything else, I do it on my back. So we just have to kind of maneuver the bottle and squeeze it and hold it until we get it full. And basically what we'll do is, and I'll get Ignacio to help me in a second, is we'll get this thing higher than the level. Okay?
Yeah.
You'll have to help me.
Okay.
Anyway, we may need our cameraman to help me for a second, but you basically put it in there and pour it. So that's how you do it. I'm on my back. This is the rear air seal, and it attaches differently than the other ones do. The other ones are riveted to the sheet metal, and the side ones have a strip on the bottom. What this does is this actually should have 3 little metal strips. You put this cover on first, and technically there should be 3 little metal strips, one here, one there, and one there. The first time somebody takes these things apart, they throw those away. You don't have to have them. They're just a little reinforcing. You just put the screw through the material there and it'll hold it in place. The little metal things are just to hold it up nice and smooth. And then once we get this one in, the rear air grill kind of holds this all up to the body like this, if you can see, kind of like that. And basically just sandwiches in between there, and that's what seals it in the rear. It's really important that you have this rear air seal on. People don't really understand the importance to it. The dealio is if you don't have that on, this is your air exhaust. We don't have the bottom shrouds on yet, but this is your air exhaust. If you don't have this seal on right here, then what happens is the hot air just recirculates up into the engine. The engine's constantly sucking and creates a Venturi effect. And so basically just recirculates the hot air and then your engine runs hot and you can't figure out why. And it's because of this $3 little piece of rubber right here.
Okay, let me show you up top. So that's what it looks like. It's pretty.
And I will say the 4-door we had didn't have that piece of rubber on it, and I'm wondering if that helped wear it out.
And so there we are with it's solid across here, and then when we put that air grill on, it will be nice and tight. Okay, it is done. All back together again. Look at this, shine, shine, shine. Okay, it's Greg had to go, but this is it, fully functioning and all back together again.